Hello buddy, it's Warden here with a quick video looking to break down the new campaigns being added with the Warden and the Paunch DLC and the Emmerich free DLC, and discussing whether or not they are right for you. Now in this video we are going to keep things brief. We're simply going to go through all the different lores being added as well as their different campaigns, discuss the highlights of the upsides, the downsides of each campaign, and hopefully that will help those of you who might still be on the fence decide which of these campaigns you'd like to kick things off with as the WoW patch does go live. So without further ado, without dilly-dallying any longer, let us dive straight into this video. First and foremost, we have his immensity, his enormity, Grom the Paunch. A chunky, chariot-bound gobbo with regen, this character brings a whole slew of new campaign mechanics, whether you want to use him in Vortex or Mortal Empire's campaign. Now, obviously, Grom does take advantage of all of the new greenskin skills, the tech trees, the scrap upgrades, and the new WoW mechanics, both in battle as well as the campaign map version of WoW. But on top of this, the Paunch spices things up with the addition of his cauldron mechanic, which allows you to collect different ingredients as well as recipes, combine those ingredients to form new recipes, and thus boost up yourself as well as the hordes at your command. Now, although both his faction and lore perks are really oriented to kind of force Grom to use gobbos and chariots and trolls, or certainly encourage that sort of playstyle, it is worth noting that Grom doesn't suffer any artificial penalties or difficulties with fielding orcish units. And this allows him, as well as his other generals, especially his other generals, who don't necessarily have his specific skills, to field orc-themed armies much more easily. And essentially means that Grom can be played in whatever manner you see fit. You want to go goblin heavy, Grom definitely encourages that, but you want to bring some orcs, you want some black orc stacks, you want some savage orc stacks, whatever may be your style, you can certainly do it with Grom. You can certainly adjust and shake things around. It's not like Scarsnake where you can only recruit orcs from a specific settlement, or a situation like 10-1 where your upkeep is crippled for a specific unit type if you haven't achieved certain requirements. So this does mean that Grom has a lot of flexibility in how he can play. Now, as for the campaign experience, in Vortex he is rated as a normal difficulty campaign. And I would actually say it's kind of an easier campaign, even by normal standards. Starting off in Karak Arud in the Southlands World's Edge Mountains, you have a fairly safe starting location. There are not enemies swarming you from all sides. You're kind of backed up into a corner, giving you a safe fallback space where your opponents can't really touch you. With a lot of mountains, you can take advantage of your underway mechanic to defend yourself, while simultaneously your opponent only has a few access points to reach your bases. And thus, this campaign is really ideal if you're looking forward to a more laid-back experience. At the same time as you have the sort of safe spot, you do have more than enough room to expand, both in territory and at the waist. And thus, well, the campaign stays simple. You do have a relatively straightforward objective of crushing Everest and winning the final siege of that city. And this does allow you to ignore the Vortex campaign and play out your campaign in a much slower and more sandboxy manner. The differences between playing Grom on Vortex versus on Mortal Empires are not particularly significant. It's a very sandboxy experience. So if you're looking for something a little more laid back, something a little easier and more forgiving, especially if you're getting back into the game just for the greenskin update, I do think starting off with Grom the Paunch on the Vortex campaign could very well be the right choice for you. Now, in Mortal Empires, the start location has changed, as has the difficulty. The difficulty for Grom the Paunch on Mortal Empires is actually rated as hard, though I personally would rate it as one of the easiest hards I've experienced in a while. Personally, the only hard campaigns I can think of that were of comparable ease are like Krokgar, who's probably even easier, and Arkin. Arkin was really easy. I'm trying to think what other hard campaigns there are, but really, Grom's hard campaign is not, in my opinion, very hard at all. You do spawn in the massive Orcal, surrounded by Bretonnians on all sides, which does give you a new variety of opponents to square off with. You've got Bretonnians, you've got Empire nearby, you do have the Wood Elves, there's some dwarves as well as vampire counts in the nearby Grey Mountains. And so there's all sorts of factions to square off with. Now, While the Shiny Knights of Bretonnia do make for an easy Crumpin, it is important to note that their territory is not ideal for settling. It is all orange territory. Fortunately for you though, there is more than enough room in the nearby Grey Mountains to give Grom a safe expansion target, with more than enough opportunity left over to sail west and crush some pointy-eared gits if the fancy happens to take you. You want to crump on Ulthuan? Go ahead. It's not very far away. Unfortunately, I will say the victory conditions on Mortal Empires are a much more tedious affair. Grom in Mortal Empires has the same victory conditions as the other Greenskin Lords, which means you've got a lot of conquering to do. You've got a lot of factions you need to annihilate. So it can become a more dragged out experience if what you're looking for is to complete a campaign and get that wonderful victory. If you don't care for that, if you're just looking for a fun experience, then that's not the case. If you're looking for a slightly more difficult take on the Paunch, because you are surrounded by that uncomfortable territory and you do have to worry about getting backdoored by beastmen and that sort of thing, or if you'd rather just crump some Humies and some beastmen and some wood elves instead of slugging out with lizards and tomb kings, then this may very well be a more fun experience than the Vortex campaign. Certainly, I don't think you can go wrong with either as Grom. I think both campaigns are rather fun, and while the Vortex campaign might be a bit easier, the Mortal Empires campaign is certainly not so hard that it would be a sort of crushing experience. But with that out of the way, we are going to be moving on to the next of the campaigns being introduced in this patch. And that campaign, of course, is Eltharion, the passive-aggressive High Elf Lord who really shakes up the usual High Elf meta with some of the fun new mechanics he adds, in the form of the Prison of Athel Tomorrow, the Mists of Yvresse, as well as his Mistwalker special units. The prison grants you additional resources with each captured lord and hero that you manage to seize in battle. And it also includes a new supply mechanic. You gain supplies through various quests as well as through raising cities and that sort of thing, which allows you to upgrade how many Mistwalkers you can recruit. It upgrades the benefits you gain from interrogating or executing or whatever you may be doing with the prisoners in Athel Tomorrow. It also gets you additional campaign benefits, such as additional influence. And so whatever the case may be, the Athel Tomorrow prison does get you a whole bunch of advantages. Next up, the Mists of Yvresse can allow you to have some great defensive benefits in your home city of Yvresse, and later all of Ulthuan as you expand the tiers of your defenses, spreading the mists from your home base all the way around the island. And finally, the Mistwalkers do grant you with an incredibly potent, albeit limited quality force that can really enhance the power of your army in various ways. You can sprinkle them throughout your different forces, you can use them all in one big monster force, but no matter what, these troops can really be a huge boon, whether for scything through mobs of trash opponents, providing you with a crazy powerful terror bomb in the form of the Knights of Torgaval, perhaps giving you a rare sword and board unit, which you otherwise don't get with the High Elves, or maybe armor or shield-breaking archers. There's a whole bunch of variety here, and the Mistwalkers can really help flesh out your strategy, and with their upgrades that you can get from both Eltharion as well as the Prison of Athel Tomorrow, they become an absolutely beastly force. Now, for the campaign experience. On the Vortex campaign, Eltharion is rated as a normal difficulty campaign, with once again, a fairly simple objective of defeating his fat foe, Grom the Paunch, in the final siege of Yvresse. Starting off in Ulthuan, and with the relative safety that island affords, his campaign once again makes for a fairly laid-back and simple experience, allowing the player the opportunity to crush the Greenskins, the Vampire Pirates of Sartosa, and later invade the Southlands, fighting the Tomb Kings, the Bretonnians there, the dwarves there, and the lizardmen there, and the factions that are arrayed against you in that area of the world. Furthermore, you will also get the opportunity to defend Ulthuan, oftentimes getting pressured from the Norskins who are kind of raiding in, or being an absolute nuisance coming in to the coast. So you do have this mix of offensive and defensive gameplay, which really makes for, in my opinion, a pretty exciting campaign and a pretty unique experience. You also do gain unique benefits as you crusade into the Southlands. Capturing locations such as Galbaraz, Spectazuma, Karakharud all grant you various unique benefits that boost your Mists of Yvresse, and that can make for some fun objectives, something that encourages you to take Eltharion away from home, don't just camp on your bum, and actually go out and do something in the world and conquer the Southlands. And I think that is definitely a bit of fun. Just do be aware that the reworked Greenskins are going to be a much greater challenge than they ever were before. In my experience in campaign, before this patch, greenskins are kind of a pushover faction on the battlefield. However, now they do have Wa in every single battle you fight, and that can be a far more devastating effect than you would anticipate. It's made the greenskins a far greater menace than they ever were. They're now capable of just eviscerating your front line in minutes and just overwhelming your missiles before you get a chance to blink. I have seen Wa go off multiple times, and 2 times in the space of a minute. It's really crazy how fast the greenskins can charge it with masses of melee troops, especially massive goblins, and it makes them a force that you really cannot underestimate, and you have to be very wary of. And it makes striking a balance between ranged and missile troops much more important than it normally would be. Now on the flip side, in Mortal Empires, once again, the Grim finds himself crusading far abroad in the Badlands as the difficulty spikes to hard. At the same time as crusading in the Badlands, you do maintain control of Ivarese. You do still have a small garrison there. You still have greenskins you need to clear up there. And this dual start, much akin to Malice Darkblade, for example, gives you a lot of different opportunities for how you can play out the game. You get the opportunity to try for dual-pronged expansion. You can try to hold on to Ivarese and hold on to Ulthuan while simultaneously conquering the Badlands. Otherwise, you can try to sacrifice one area or the other, and this can simplify the campaign, make it a good bit easier. You can sacrifice the Badlands. You could even sacrifice Ulthuan if you really want to risk that, though I probably wouldn't recommend it. And consolidate in one location, which then allows you to have what I would say is a smoother and more streamlined campaign experience. Otherwise, you can focus on just using the Badlands as a springboard to ransack and raid various Orcish settlements, while simultaneously focusing most of your expansion on Ulthuan. No matter what you do, this start position in Mortal Empires really allows Eltharion to have a whole variety of diverse gameplay experiences and really challenges the player to juggle their priorities. And in my opinion, this makes the Mortal Empire start for Eltharion the most exciting and really the most unique of the new start positions that are being offered. If I was simply looking for a all-around fun campaign detached from the factions involved or anything of that, I do think this is the one that just offers the most things you can do, or the most ways you can play your game. And that does lead us on to the final campaign we're going to be discussing, or the final lord we're going to be discussing here. And that is Emmerich, the Lord of Dragons and our very own pointy-eared Sigvald, who brings us back to terra firma with a much more grounded campaign in the Vortex, as well as Mortal Empires. Well, kind of in Mortal Empires. He can be, as we will discuss, a bit different there. Although much more vanilla than the other 2 highlights of this update, he does enjoy his unique dragon taming mechanic, with the potential to encounter various legendary dragons over the course of his travels, and then gaining their blessings through payment, or perhaps gaining their martial prowess, gaining those dragons for himself through combat and conquest. As the campaign progresses, you also may get the opportunity to confederate Kalidor, which allows you to gain the help of a potent home base to support your far-off crusade, because both of Emmerich's starts start far away from home at Ulthuan. Now in the Vortex campaign, unlike many of his brethren, Emmerich starts a normal difficulty campaign deep in the Southlands, enjoying the benefits of the City of Bronze at Castlebar. This serves as a springboard from which he can then expand in all directions. Imperial and Bretonnian Crusaders, Tomb Kings, Lizards, Stunties, Wood Elves, even Grom himself do provide Emmerich with a plethora of potential enemies and allies in the dark depths of the Southlands, and grant a player a massive variety of potential courses of action while providing a decent amount of challenge. The fact that you do have to adapt to different army types and different force types really does spice up Emmerich's campaign, where otherwise it would be, in my opinion, a bit more of a bland and conventional high elf campaign otherwise, where you just sort of fight 1 or 2 opponent types. The fact that you fight a lot of different things in fairly short amount of time makes for a much more interesting experience, though still a pretty easy one. Emmerich starts almost in the same location as Grom. The city of Castlebar is literally in the adjacent province to Grom's province in the southern World's Edge Mountains, or the Southlands World's Edge Mountains. And so you can easily fight your way into the corner where Grom would normally be, and then have a safe point of expansion to start with. Now, in comparison to this varied and relatively easy start you get in Vortex, Emmerich's Mortal Empires campaign can really be summed up in 2 words: nightmare fuel. The campaign is rated as hard, much like Grom and Eltharion are rated on Mortal Empires as well. However, unlike those 2 campaigns, the Mortal Empires campaign for Emmerich lives up to its moniker. It is hard to a T, or perhaps a D, I guess if it's hard. I'll show myself out. Although starting fairly simple and easy, the difficulty quickly escalates to desperate straits as you find yourself beset by enemies from all sides. Skaven, greenskins, dwarfs, and dark elves, all of them hate you, all want to kill you, and you are all alone, far from any hope of help from Ulthuan. That is the case in the most miserable Assyrian Forsaken backwater that the entirety of the Warhammer world has to offer. So, if you enjoy trying to optimize a campaign of lightning strikes and hard-fought battles where you're designed to conserve every last soldier so you can keep your momentum going and carve out a safe haven in the miserable southeastern corner of the Warhammer Mortal Empires map, or if you enjoy sieges and a near continuous stream of enemies and desperate last stands, then this is really the campaign for you. This is a very challenging campaign. I have now given it quite a bit of time. I've played this campaign for quite some duration, and although it's merely rated as hard on Legendary, the difficulty I'm playing on, I find the campaign to be comparable with some of the most frustrating and difficult campaigns out there, including Angrund and Crooked Moon. The campaign starts out easy. It seems to be very simple at first, with your very powerful early game stack, including Sun Dragon, including White Lions, including Dragon Princes, but then it swiftly snowballs out of control as you have to deal with constant pressure from Snitch, from the Greenskins, who are now reworked and much more dangerous, as well as the Dwarves, who hate your guts. So it's a very unpleasant and brutal start. But if that is what you enjoy, if you do like a challenge, if you do want to feel the heat and you want to experience a very difficult campaign and try to optimize your strats, this is certainly the way to go, I think. Now, to wrap things up, we are going to do a quick little summary of each faction that I mentioned, of each lord that I mentioned, and the different starts. Grom, obviously, is a good choice if you're looking for the Greenskins and a crumpin' good time. Both of his campaigns are simple, they're fairly easy no matter the choice of start, and he has the benefit of the new Greenskin mechanics, plus his own set of unique perks with the Cauldron mechanic. And both of his campaigns really do offer the player with a variety of expansion options. They really let you play out a campaign in a much more sandboxy manner than especially Emmerich's Mortal Empires campaign does, for example, which does make Grom, in my opinion, a pretty fun, laid-back, and easy start. Now, then we do have Eltharion, and I think Eltharion is good for you if you like High Elves with a little bit of a twist. His unique mechanics and units do spice up the usual High Elf meta, and his start really allows for a beautiful mix of defensive and offensive action. You are encouraged to have some defenses set up to protect Ivres, but at the same time, you are rewarded for crusading far from home, from conquering various territories, and taking the fight to the Green Menace. Finally, with Emmerich, if you would like a unique start spot in Vortex, at least for High Elves, but you don't want something too different from the usual High Elf gameplay, I would definitely recommend Emmerich as a start in Vortex. He is a pretty conventional High Elf campaign in most ways. It's just that you get a cool start that isn't normal, and then you can later pick up Calidor along the way. Otherwise, if you're looking for a challenge and want a truly difficult campaign, then I believe the Mortal Empire start for Emmerich is ideal, with the miserable southeastern backwater really providing you with plenty of opportunity to test your strategic as well as tactical mettle. Whatever you may choose, I do think all 6 of these campaigns do have their own merits and have their own fun elements and their own bits and bobs that make them more entertaining than some of the others. I do hope that this video gives you guys some insight and hopefully helps you decide on which of these campaigns would be right for you and helps you choose which one you would like to play. If you do have played or do start to play and have your own thoughts and opinions, as always, don't hesitate to put them down below. I would love to hear your guys' thoughts and opinions there. But hopefully you do enjoy, and hopefully this video does help you pick something fun and something to your liking to start off with. I will see you all in the next one. Bye for now.